morning, everyone. Welcome to Mission Nursery. We're so glad to see you. I hope you're having a great time at your house while we're at our house. So, just like last week, we're going to get started with the song. So if you're sitting down, go ahead and stand up. Stand up and get some energy out. So we are going to do a new song today. It's called Do Lord. You can either listen with us, or if you want, you can click on the link and there'll be another song that pops up and you can dance around to that. So are you ready? Yes, let's go. Ready?
Jesus as my Savior, you take him too. I took Jesus as my Savior, you take him too. Way beyond the blue. Oh, do Lord, oh, do remember me. Do Lord, oh, do Lord, oh, do remember me. Do Lord, oh, do Lord, oh, do remember me.
We are going to do another story in the Jesus Storybook Bible. So if you have yours, whether it's yellow or purple or a different color, run, go get it right now so you can look at the pictures with us.
Is this a short face?
All right. So last week, what did we read about? Do you remember?
Yeah. Read about that one.
We read about a burning bush. And who talked to Moses from the burning bush?
Me, and it's summer.
Yes. So God spoke to Moses from the burning bush. He told him to go back to Pharaoh and to tell him to let his people go from slavery. But Pharaoh said no. So God sent 10 plagues. And finally, on the 10th plague, Pharaoh said, your people can go. So right away, God's people left Egypt and went into the desert, following God, not knowing exactly where they were going. That's where our story picks up today. Today we're going to read, God Makes a Way.
Mom, can you read it to me?
So Moses and God's people escaped out of Egypt and into the wilderness. They didn't know the way, but God knew the way and he would show them. I will bring you to a new home, a special land, God promised them. I will look after you. I am with you. God sent a big cloud for them to follow, a pillar of smoke stretching up to the sky. It moved in front of them as they walked and shaded them from the blazing heat of the day. And when it was time to rest, it stopped. All through the cold desert nights, it kept them warm, glowing like fire. God led his people through the desert to the edge of a great sea. They were just wondering how to cross it when, suddenly, they heard a terrible thundering and pounding. It sounded almost like horses' hooves. They shaded their eyes to look back and screamed. slaves back," he screeched, and charged out into the desert after them with 600 of his fastest horsemen and every single chariot in Egypt.
Let me see.
You see it?
I see the big horses, the little horses.
Yeah, what do you see? What were God's people going to do? In front of them was the big sea. It was so big there was no way around it. There was no way through it. It was too deep. They didn't have any boats, so they couldn't sail across. And they couldn't swim across because it was too far and they would drown. And they couldn't turn back because Pharaoh was chasing them. They could see the flashing swords now, glinting in the baking sun, and the dust clouds, and chariot after chariot surging toward them. So they did the one thing there was left to do. Panic! Ah! We're gonna die, they shrieked. "Don't be afraid," Moses said. "But there's nothing we can do," they screamed. "God knows you can't do anything," Moses said. "God will do it for you. Trust him and watch." "But there's no way out," they cried. "God will make a way," Moses said. Another minute and it would have been over. But then the strangest thing happened. Turn your book this way. God made the pillar of smoke move. It moved behind his people and hid them from the Egyptians. Then God sent a strong east wind to blow all night long. It blew on the water of the big sea. It blew it to the left and it blew it to the right until it blew it into two towering walls of water. And there, right through the middle of the sea, a muddy pathway opened up. And God's people walked across on dry land. When the Egyptians tried to follow, the walls of water crashed down on them and swallowed them up. God's people were safe. They danced and laughed and sang and thanked God. When there had been no way out, God made a way. Many years later, once again, God was going to make a way when there was no way. From the beginning, God's children had been running from him and hiding. God knew his children could never be happy without him, but they couldn't get back to him by themselves. They were lost. They didn't know the way back, but God knew the way, and one day he would show them. That's the end of the story for this week. Come back next week.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. So instead of doing a craft right now, we are going to do some acting out. Who likes to act out things? To act out a story at your own house? Me. So today we are going to act out Moses and his people crossing the Red Sea, just like we read in that Bible story. So if you have two chairs or maybe a couch and a chair, get them set up to where they're really, really close together. And then we're going to act out Moses and his people walking out on dry land. Okay, Amy, go on the other side.
Quick.
Are you stuck on that side? Can you get through the ocean? All right. So now the ocean's about to open up right here. Ooh, can you walk in the middle? Yeah. Can you walk right through the middle here? Let's practice walking through dry land like this. This is the little path. Woo! Okay. Do your animals want to go through the dry land?
Okay. Alfie, do you want to?
Okay. Take them through the dry land. Can they go right through the water?
Hey, my bucket.
Okay, zoom.
Zoom.
Perfect. Can they get through when the water's really tight? Can they get through right now when the water's really tight? No, they're stuck. Then God has to open up the waters. Okay, now they can go. Go. Wow, Moses and his people are walking across on dry land just like you. Is that good? All right, you can make whatever version of that and make it as creative as you want at your own home. And if you want to, you can take a picture and send it to us.